We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Especially when you do it to yourself. I know it's particularly annoying when you have to make up for other people's mistakes, but when it's your own fault, generally speaking, and there's not really anyone else to point the finger at and go, yeah, it was your fault. Welcome to the show. It's Toward Anarchy. I'm Michael Storm. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's Saturday night. It's prime time. We're worldwide right here on the Republic Broadcasting Network. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram and X and TikTok and all over the place at Toward Anarchy. Wherever you find me, please take just a quick second to hit that like button. That's all it takes. Just tap, a click, whatever it is, whether it's the mouse, your finger, whatever it is, it only takes that split second, and it means the world to me. Follow along at towardanarchy.com, and that's you just keep up right there. And it's really easy if you're trying to find the episode, since I redid the numbering and have changed how we number the show internally from week to week. It's actually much easier to follow. It's just episode 2513. If you look in episodes, you look for year 2025 and episode number 13. Boy, just like that. Real tough stuff there, right? If you were to do that right now, you'd see that the topic of the day is the trouble with tariffs, and of course that's a little play on the trouble with tribbles Star Trek episode. Just a little bit of the geek peeking out there. It'll be a little anarchist audit of tariffs, because I believe that I have done you a bit of a disservice by not directly taking on the issue of tariffs and really trying to give you the information, something that you can work with, as opposed to me just sort of talking at you about them. So I did the work. I put in the extra time and came up with some links and some things for you to consider as we have the conversation about the trouble that we have with tariffs. Hour 2, Cody Johnston joins me. He's the weird Canadian, and he's my guest to chat about American and Canadian relations during this sort of trade war. Goes right along with the tariffs. Perfect, right? It all works out that way. Never really planned that way, but as the pieces come together, as I get closer and closer to each episode each week, they seem to just mesh. It melds. It's a synergy with the universe, I suppose, that I have, and in some small way, we could say. We will do the entire look at it. I'm not going to stop. I have all the things, all the stuff is up there. If you want information about my guest, Cody, coming up at the top of the hour, the Weird Canadian, that link is up there. You want information about how to follow the show, you want the email newsletter, you want to sign up for that, you want to try to win yourself a copy of Economics in One Lesson. I finally mailed off all of them. Every one of them has finally gone out now so far from the beginning of the year, and I still have plenty more to give away. I randomly choose somebody who joins the email list each month to have a copy, to receive a copy of it, and it's a fantastic, nice little copy. Of course, the deal being you receive it, you get it, you keep it, you read it, you sign it, and then you pass it along to somebody else. And they do the same, and everybody gets that's the deal. That's the prize. Yeah, right. Great prize, something you got to give to somebody else. No, that should make you feel great, because, right? Isn't it all about the the idea that better to give than receive. There you go. That's the phrase. I knew there was something in there, some platitude, some idea. Cody Johnston coming up at the top of the hour, as I said. And then next week we will talk with Ross Pitkoff, the Pitkoff Law. We'll talk about legal disputes and contracts in general, but specifically about Hollywood and celebrity contracts, things like that. And maybe we'll get into, maybe he knows some of the stuff about Diddy and Epstein and we were talking about sort of elites and celebrity status and rich people and famous people who use the law to their advantage and just the law in general, like I said. Unfortunately, though, I just realized today that they haven't actually confirmed, and this is one of those obnoxious things where they reached out to me, his people reached out to me and said, hey, we'd love to have a chat with you on your show. And, it's not like they need to, I don't think. It's not like the Pitkoff Law Firm is in need of Michael Storm's support. So they reached out to me because they wanted to have the conversation here. They wanted to be heard. And now they have not reached back out to me after I said, yes, let's go ahead and do it. Let's set it up for this time. So I don't know really if they'll actually show up next week or not. And it's too bad for some of these people who, it's not the Podmatch system. The Podmatch system is great. Alex and everybody there at Podmatch is fantastic. And it's these people that are representatives, they're promoters. They're not the individuals themselves. They're not the people themselves, because the people themselves, they make an effort. They talk to you, and you can tell the difference real easily if they don't just spell it out right. Dr. Lloyd, to wrap up the month, and then the beginning of next month is real special because we will have a guest that I was on her show here just this last week. It's called the Spooky Scholars Podcast. It was fantastic. I was really happy to be invited on the show, given my connection with comic books and the connection between horror and comic books, and knowing that horror has driven the comic book industry long before the superhero industry drove the comic book industry, and it's still at the backbone of it, the independent industry for sure, and there's a number of reasons for that, but there is a lot of the horror genre that appears in so many different ways and throughout comic books and of course throughout movies. And we just chatted about the genre itself and the history of comic books as it relates to it, and sort of then we got into some cancel culture and talked about Comic-Gate a little bit, and of course it's any conversation with me is going to be sprinkled with a little bit of undertones of anarchist ideology. So but mostly it's just a fun talk about horror. We really get into the conversation and just have fun, and I know more prepared for this than I do just about anything I do. I'm just me. I just go in as me. There's no pretense. I don't pretend to go in to be an expert on anything. I just know what I know, and I can talk about what I can talk about. And so I don't go in there plan for anything. I checked a couple of dates for like EC publications and things like that, and we never really got into anything that specific. But I didn't set out to think about in advance, she's going to ask me what my favorite horror movie is. That thought never crossed my mind going into it, but of course she did ask me. And so what was my answer? I don't know. I think a lot of people would not be surprised in the least to hear what my answer was if you consider all the other things that I like and enjoy. And you would have to listen to the show, and it's worth the listen. It's fun chat, and if you're into horror at all, you may want to just go ahead and subscribe or follow the Spooky Scholars podcast, and follow Ash and the people that she talks to, because she has some conversations with some really great people, authors, people in the industry, just horror fans in general, kind of like myself. But of course I had the comic book side of things to bring and speak with her about, and she really enjoyed the conversation. I really enjoyed the conversation. I wanted to continue it, and there's there's more about her to know and to find out. So I thought it'd be fun to have her here as well. So I made sure to invite her to come over to continue the conversation. We'll probably do that the 1st of May, the first weekend in May. Shout out to the folks there on YouTube. You know, I don't get a lot of love from the YouTube community, but there's a couple hundred of you plus that do give the love, and I truly appreciate it, because it's not easy to get love on YouTube unless you behave in a particular way, talking about certain things. You don't get to be the reasonable, normal, healthy individual and get a lot of follows right away. It takes time to build it up, and otherwise you have to be sort of ranting and raving, and I just don't do that. I get a little heated every once in a while, and I'll go on a rant, but I've clearly, come on now, 6 years we've been doing this version of this thing here, and all this time, if you haven't figured out that I am not the angry white guy, that I am not an enemy of people, that I don't care if you're black or you're white or you're gay or you're straight, you're a man, you're a woman, you like horror movies, you don't like horror movies, you read comic books, you don't read comics. I don't care about any of that stuff. I just care about good people who, when they're around each other, with each other, and when they're not around each other and with each other, treat each other with respect. And that happens out here on the ground floor. It's when we get divided by these politics and the notion of politics that it starts to become a problem. It starts to become an issue. It divides us, and really it makes people in that system very angry. They're always very angry at each other, and if you mistake, of course I get angry. It happens, but it's not very often, and it's a lot less often as I'm getting older than it ever was. And you see, the default would be to suggest that, well, that should be the way it is, but it's not the way it is, and you know it's not the way it is. You see older people being much more angry. They're much more upset with the younger generations. They're much more upset because they have spent a lifetime believing a certain way about our reality, about America, about the flag, about our politics, about democracy, and it isn't true. It's not. It's what they. It's been a lie. It's been smoke and mirrors. It's all been a game to make other people rich and powerful at our sacrifice. The rest of us have to pay for it, and it's not a good thing. I'll tell you about a good thing here real quick before I go too much further and we really get into this, because we're going to spend the whole show talking about tariffs here. I did a comic book review. It's not a review. They're not reviews. I don't review the book. I don't grade it or rate it in any kind of way. I just suggest that there's a story here. Say a little bit about what that story is, and suggest that somebody might want to read it. It's not graded, it's not a review. There's one up there, but I'm not going to play it today because I want to concentrate entirely on the tariffs. I think that's important. The link is always there. Everybody's watching them. They're fantastic. I just really appreciate the reception to the reacts, my anarchist reacting to comic books, issues of comic books, and it's taken off really well. And I hope it continues to grow, because it's the type of thing that can make it so that I can continue to do this for no reason other than I get to talk about my things, and it helps support my things, and I don't have to, again, try to find some way to monetize the show. I can always do this for free. It's just fantastic. There's so many reasons why it just makes sense for me to attach my working life and this this little journalist thing that I do, that I've been doing for 30 years. And, it's the first time that's ever happened. It's the first time I've ever had the opportunity to do that. It's fantastic. And it's, thanks to you. You guys have been really great and supportive, and you do give the likes and you give the follows and the shares. And so keep doing so. I truly appreciate it. Coming up on Thursday live here across Republic Broadcasting Network, I am hosting a new show. It's called Your Health in Mind. It's myself as a host. I'm not really doing it. I'm just kind of facilitating. Dr. Dean Lloyd is the healer and facilitator, and he can chat with you. He can empower you. He can give you the language, the tools to take the information that we talk about, the questions that you have, and that he can answer to your healthcare provider and speak with them, be empowered to speak with them about your health and make sure that you're getting the care that you need. That's every Thursday for the next couple of months. Initially, we'll see where it goes from there, see how it goes across the network. We've been taking phone calls and answering questions for the last couple of weeks. It's been fantastic, and we're really looking forward to having you jump in and support us, and by calling, by just jumping in as a listener of the network. It's 1 p.m. Central Standard Time in the afternoon. Call in with your question on Thursdays for the next couple of months, right here on the network, and call in with your questions. It's Your Health in Mind. It'll be fun, and I've been having fun. I'm having fun because I'm back to live again, and I haven't done the live thing in a little while. I've been recording for some time now, and I don't want to give up the recording, trust me, for any number of reasons. There's so much more that I can do in post-production with the recording than I can with live, especially since I'm separated from the producer. They're in Texas, I'm in Kansas, and so I can't run it the same as if I were in the studio with the producer, where the phone calls are coming in, where all the live action is happening. That's not the way it works anymore. So it's so much better that I get to record. But I've really been enjoying just being able to interact live and do that again. I do the recording here in one take, and I do my interview in one take. I do this part of the show in one take. So it's almost as if I were live, but it's not. It's not quite the same thing. It doesn't have the same drive underneath, because really, if I do mess up, the option is always there. If I really screw something up, the option is always there that I can stop, I can restart, I can do all those things in post-production. It doesn't happen. Maybe if I mess up in the first 30 seconds or something like that, I stumble and say something stupid real quick, really, and that happens every once in a while. I can stop it and restart real quick right then, but you don't have that choice in live. If you say something stupid in live, you say it wrong, whatever, you just have to roll with it. You just have to go with it. There's no chance of fixing it. But I've always thought that the important point of this was the free-form nature of it, that it didn't need to be edited. That's one of the things that's a little bit weird with a lot of the major podcasts, the fact that they don't just record them, that they have to produce them. And that's a weird thing to me. The podcast doesn't even release until quite some time later or whatever. And no, why do that? Why put yourself in that position where you, especially some of these people that are doing multiple podcasts in a week or something, to be spending the time doing production, or to have somebody else. I know I talked with all these people. There's a show that I'll be on. I don't know when the episode comes out. I was already on it. It's about comic books and the comic book industry. And I just remember him saying something about mentioning that he had a producer, somebody that was going to do all the post-production work on the show, and that's a little bit foreign to me. Obviously, I do everything myself, but I also do it so that I don't have to spend so much time in post-production. I don't want to have to edit things out, and I want it to be completely natural and just off the cuff anyway. Why not? Why not? And that's part of the fun of life. What's he going to say next? I don't even know. I'm just filling the space, and my brain works to fill the space just a little bit faster than my mouth does. RepublicBroadcasting.org. Click on the donate button over there on the left-hand side. Support the network. We truly appreciate the listener support. We wouldn't be able to do it. We've been doing it for years and years. The network even longer than I've been doing it with the network, of course. 30 years in this thing I've been broadcasting. RepublicBroadcasting.org. Click that donate button over there on the left-hand side. It's a little orangish button, and it just takes a few clicks, and you have made your donation one time, monthly, your amount. You control it. If you need some other options, you can give us a call, 800-724-2719, extension 3, and you can speak to somebody about the various options of what you can do other than there's so many different things that you could theoretically do to support the network. You never know until you talk to somebody. I don't even know until I talk to somebody over there and I say, hey, Mike or whoever, and I say, what can I do? What can we do? What's up? Do you need some help with something? And they always need help with something, and they're always just scrambling to just do things, and they don't necessarily take the time to ask, and they don't delegate responsibility necessarily as good as they could. So it could help to call up and ask how you can help out, what it is that you can do. But dollars and cents, consider that. We're all considering that right now, right? The economy's not getting any better. The dollar's not getting any better. We're going to get into that here in just a minute. Visit shoprbn.com for the win-win. You can support the advertisers who support the show and support the network, and it doesn't matter if it's this show. There's so many other voices. There's so many other things to be heard across the network. You're not just supporting me. You're not just supporting the idea of anarchy. You are supporting the network and all the people across the network, and it's a fantastic, wonderful thing that you do, and we thank you so much for doing so, and now is as good a time to do so as any. So republicbroadcasting.org, that's where to go for that. And where to go for the show and to jump in here and let's talk about this thing. Let's just dive right in. It's episode 2513. That's where the links are all at. We'll bring Cody Johnston in here at the top of the hour. We'll talk to him. He's the weird Canadian that linked to Our Brilliant Ruin, Horror at Crane Mansion. That's the comic book I read. The link to that review, that reaction is up there. The link to the Spooky Scholars podcast is up there. There's also a graph up there. This graph is in the meme spot. I could have taken any number of hilarious memes about tariffs and shared them with you this week, but this was actually a really good graph because it shows you what has happened to our steel industry, and I can show you on this graph a definitive reason why tariffs are not a good idea. So this blue color here and the dark line above the blue color shows the steel in metric tons. This is according to the USGS, the output of metric tons of steel that the U.S. has had since 1900. And so if you know anything about the history of it, then you'll recognize these things as I talk about them. But we have these periods, but generally in upward growth. You get the period just before the war, the Depression, after the Roaring 20s and into the 30s, and you see an obvious collapse of the steel industries because you see an obvious collapse of everything about 1929. Go figure, into 1932 or so, and then it starts to go naturally back up again. There's a little hiccup right before the war, and then, of course, during the war, there's going to be plenty of steel production going on, and there's an upward trend from there on into the 70s. And when I say an upward trend, what I mean is that the general trend of the steel industry, the output of metric tons of steel each year by the American steel industry, is going upward. It can have down points, but the overall effect is an upward trend. There's more being output. If you take sort of 1940 to 43, somewhere peak war, there's about 80 million metric tons of steel that we're producing. By 1973, when I'm born, it's about 138 million metric tons of steel. So that's a general upward trend, wouldn't you say? Well, now then we have problems in the 70s, and the steel industry takes a hit, and this leads into the current era and the current controls and tariffs and things that existed for the last 20 plus years. And I guess moving closer to the 30 and 40 and 50 years into my birthday, pushing it. But no, really, because it really starts to show an upward trend pretty quickly after the problems of the 70s. It peaks in 73, and then it starts a downward trend. And then again, what I mean by that is the trend is downward. We go from 138 or 39 million metric tons of steel being produced in America in 1973 to 1982 or so, all the way down to about 70. So cut in half, basically. And then from that point on, after the economic upheaval of the late 70s and into the Reagan era, everything starts to change a little bit, and some things are done, and there's some of it's market manipulation, but some of it is laissez-faire. And the general trend begins to go up again, and it's not until 2000 that another general trend begins to go down, and that is because of the Bush tariffs that were enacted on steel right there, and the trend has been down, completely down, until it's almost nothing at this point, comparative, certainly, and in the total number. And so that's just a neat little graph that shows you a point in history where manipulation didn't work. This graph shows you what tariffs do and what they don't do. And what they'll do is they'll create a little bit of a spike, just a little bit of anomalous jump in the industry, and then from there on, the problems with the industry persist, and it continues to go down. And by 2009 or so, we're down to 60,000 after having been back up by 2000 just before they messed with it, back up to 100 million tons. We're back down to 60, and then it spiked back up a little bit after that, and it dropped sort of down and out, and I don't know. This stops at 2020, but basically they're saying our industry disappeared about 2015, our steel industry. So that's what tariffs do. But let's take a look at the bigger picture of the tariffs, and I tried to provide you as many reasonable links without just drowning you and stuff. So there's about 3 links, and then there's another link or two of some other things up there as well that I shared with you. Of course, the Spooky Scholars podcast, that episode that I was on, that's one of those links. But then the one right after that is this. It's a mainstream source. They're an authority on the economy. I wanted to see what they had to say about tariffs, because you know where I am with tariffs, and I know where I am with tariffs. I don't have to explain it to myself. Ago, and when I didn't know what tariffs were, but I knew what the word was, and I thought, all right, well, let's figure this out. Let's play it out in your head, and what happens. What are the options of this guy, of this industry, in the steel industry? It was about the steel industry. But it's about a fake product, and so it's just me, pontificating about it and trying to, unless you're somebody who works in improv, you have to be just sort of constantly on your toes with your language and your thoughts and the direction of things. You have to make a really concerted effort to think about all of the angles of something, especially when it's multifaceted, like an economic transaction or something that involves such a number of people, a number of different places where manipulations, changes, interests, investments, all these things can possibly affect that trade and affect the outcome of that trade. Tariffs are just one of those things, and you'll see. I'll try to keep this all directed in and not jump back and forth on things, because it's kind of easy to do, because I can talk about one aspect of it. This is that multifaceted point that I was getting at, and in trying to look at it from all these different angles. You can trail off down one of those angles just a little bit too much and not find your way back, or forget something more important or seemingly more important. And so hopefully we won't do too much of that. What is a tariff and why are they important? This is on Investopedia, and it was created on the 13th of February, 2025. So it's modern. It's right now. It's where we're at. It's talking about what we're talking about inside the context of the current reality of tariffs in our economy, right? So this is by a guy named Scott Neville. It's reviewed by Robert C. Kelly, and it's fact-checked by David Rubin. And I don't know, maybe you know who some of those people are. I do not know who any of those people are, but it doesn't matter. Again, this is about information. It's always about information for me. This is every one of the links that I found for you specifically about tariffs today was just a little bit of a deeper dig, because I didn't want to. I can give you my things all the time. I can give you the latest Mises article or Independence Institute or something like that right off the top, and I can just leave you run with it. But most people probably aren't going to think to necessarily go to those places, and even on the conservative side. And one of the reasons that I have to have this conversation right now, and why I decided that we needed to do the whole look at tariffs, and not just me sort of riffing about them from one show to the next, to do the whole thing, is because of the fact that right now there are so many conservatives, so many libertarians, and so many anarchists, in fact, which they're always a bunch of fake-ass anarchists that do, whatever. I anarchy better than you do, but they're supporting this idea of tariffs, and they're supporting this idea of tit for tat, and it just shows the general lack of the ignorance, the lack of understanding of economics, and very simple economics, in fact, because what you're looking at, let's just talk about the very basic notion of the tariff. The tariff is the attempt to alter the market because the market is not working for a certain industry. And so that industry needs protected, or there's some interest, there's some political or monetary interest for the state. Those are the main reasons why tariffs are enacted. And so what you're having is, what you get is, you have the state, the government that wants more money, or you have a problem with an industry and you're trying to protect it. And that the thing about that is that putting the tariff there doesn't it may protect the industry for a little bit of time. That graph I just talked about shows that, but it doesn't fix what's wrong. It doesn't fix what's broken about the steel industry or whatever industry it is. It doesn't fix what is wrong with why we're not selling as many cars. If it's cars, that's one thing that they'll put a tariff on. But they'll say, like, here's $500 that's tacked onto this bill on this imported car. So if you buy a Toyota from Japan, or I don't even know where you buy other cars from anymore. I don't know that anything is made in America anymore. That's why it's kind of a bit of a ridiculous notion. And so there's something wrong with our car industry. There's something wrong with our steel industry. There's something wrong with our computer industry, our IC industry, integrated circuit industry. There's something wrong with these industries, and so we need to protect them. So they put up an economic barrier, and that doesn't fix the problem. And so the economic barrier only lasts for a certain amount of time, and then you have to adjust the economic barrier. Or worse, the other country, the country that you place this economic barrier on their products to, well, they say, well, they're a bunch of stuff that we bought, that our people buy from you, that we don't really want, that we'd rather they buy from our people here in our country, and so we're just going to go ahead and put another tariff up on you, and that's another barrier to trade. So now, instead of zero barriers to trade, where there was no trade imbalance, I'll explain that in just a second. There's no trade imbalance between these two people. It's a zero-sum game. Everybody gets what they get. Nobody's getting up over one on the other. This country sells what they have to sell that this country wants to buy. This country sells what this country has to sell that country wants to buy, and that's it. Nobody's getting up on each other. But then now you've had the first tariff and then the second tariff. That's two more barriers to trade that didn't exist before, and then another tariff on top of that, and another, and it stacks, another tax, another problem. All right, so that's the core problem. You've created more barriers to trade than you've reduced, and you've not fixed the problem that's actually the real problem with why your industry isn't working. And then it all ends up in the pockets of the criminals in government. Ultimately, that's how they need more. It's Saturday morning. I'm at the comic book shop just before it's time to open up, and I'm just doing the last hour, and they just passed yesterday. They just got the rest of the Republicans to jump on board to increasing the debt ceiling limit to the largest increase ever, yada yada yada. And I've been sitting here trying to do what I always do and suggest that maybe the right thing is going to happen and maybe somebody's going to do the right thing. And you hear about Doge, and you hear about let's get rid of government waste, let's find this fraud, let's do all this, and let's talk about giving dividends back to the people, and we won't even get into that. Let's give them back money, let's stop all this fraud, let's end government waste. And you think, oh well, those all sound like good things, except that what you realize is what's really happening, especially when you see the debt ceiling get raised. They obviously do not intend to stop spending money. They in fact intend to spend a whole hell of a lot more. And so what's happening is that they're just playing the tit for tat that we're talking about. It's a sort of internal trade war against between Democrats and Republicans, trying to decide where the stolen wealth goes to, trying to say who gets more of what stolen wealth, our tax dollars, the money that is taken from us and given to those irresponsible scumbags in Washington in particular. And they don't know what to do with it other than blow up other places and to make themselves rich and to try to increase the size of government, to find more ways to get more taxes, to increase the size of government, to put more money in their pockets. You see where I'm going with this circular problem here? And so we didn't fix the problems with the industry. We manipulated the market. And we put a tariff on things, and tariffs are something that governments will levy against others. I'll go into the Investopedia thing. You got my overall view of the tariff and the problems. I think I showed a simple way where it shows that it doesn't really work, and you can extrapolate from there, or you don't even have to extrapolate from there. You can just go look at the other industries that have had tariffs placed against them and see the same general trends. It's going to be the same no matter which one of them you look at. In the long term, the trends will be exactly the same as I just described, because that's life. Again, that's the bell curve. If you go back and look at that graph that's there, that's the bell curve. That's that same bell curve that I'm always talking about. Yes, that's a graph, but it's the bell curve. Do you know what a bell curve is? It's a curve of understanding. It's a curve of information. It's a curve of reality that does just that. It starts lower, it curves up into a greater understanding, and then it falls off onto the other side of complete complete understanding or completely disappears or completely changes. So it's the opposite of the other side, and in the middle is where all the fantastic, fun, and interesting stuff happens that most people pay attention to. This graph there is the same as all those. It's the same with the vaccine graph. It's the same with the knowledge graph. When you overlay the vaccine graph, the knowledge graph, the steel industry graph, you overlay them all, they all look the same. There's a trend. There's a point where we know nothing. There's a point where we have a understanding of something and it has a better advantage over us than we do, and then there's a point where that no longer exists and we have a full understanding or we have a full control over something, or something is completely otherwise changed from the state it was on one side of the curve to the other side of the curve. That's just life. I can show you it over and over and over and over again, repeatedly throughout. It's one of the interesting things about math and about reality when you compare them together. One of those fun things that I've tried to discover and not discover, that I've tried to just watch and see how it appears throughout reality, throughout my reality, how it repeats itself over and over again. And it's our, it's our shared reality. It's not something I made up myself. But so back to the tariffs and what they say they are. One of the ways governments, this is quoting, one of the ways governments deal with trading partners they disagree with is through tariffs. A tariff is a tax, and they even say it's a tax imposed by one country on the goods or services imported from another country to influence it, raise revenues, or protect competitive advantages. So they have some key takeaways. Governments impose tariffs to raise revenue, protect domestic industries, or exert political leverage over another country. Basically, this is nothing that I didn't already say. Tariffs often result in unwanted, not often, always result in unwanted side effects. If you leave them in place long enough, they will always result in unwanted side effects. And no matter what they result in. And so what? Okay, so it's an unwanted side effect for us. It's not an unwanted side effect for the people who enact the tariff. It's exactly what they want to happen. So this is a misstatement, and it's a mischaracterization of the point of a tariff. I hope you understand it. Believe me when I say that this is a lie. Tariffs often result in unwanted side effects. They always result in unwanted side effects for you and me, but those are the side effects that tariff is actually going for. Raising the cost on you and I is exactly what they know is going to happen. They don't care if it actually changes the police. Okay, so here, look at this. As soon as they started talking about these tariffs, as soon as they started talking about China this time around, one of the biggest producers, an American company, one of the biggest producers of a massive product that a lot of people buy, has their stuff produced in China, go figure. But they have it produced in other places as well. And so what happened when they started talking about tariffs, immediately when they started talking about big 104% tariffs or whatever on technology from China or something, just ridiculous numbers, stupid things, Apple decided, well, all we'll do is we'll shift our production out of China into India where there's no tariff. And so what's going to happen now? Well, what do? Supposedly, if you're following through, you place a tariff on India, too, on goods coming out of India. And so now you have two enemies in a trade war. There's nothing good about this. Back to the Investopedia. This is the authoritative view on it. This is what the normal person is going to get. And the reason I went with an investment as opposed to just an investment firm, a big investment firm, as Investopedia. It's more like an encyclopedia of investment information. But generally speaking, as investors, they're looking everywhere, and they're looking for a relative truth. They're not trying to theoretically find that truth within a particular subset of our democracy, the left or the right. because the left and the right both use the same economic policies. All they do is transfer and shift wealth from one place to another. Their methods of taking it, their methods of acquiring it are exactly the same. That's one of those core problems with the whole notion that there's going to be change, that something will be different if you vote for the other guy. Back to the Investopedia thing. Tariffs have a long and contentious history and debate. These are these key takeaways. History and the debate over whether they represent good or bad policy still rages. No, they represent bad policy because it's bully policy. And what I explained about it, stacking problem on problem. It's not reducing the problems, it's creating more problems, and it's never solving the real problem. If at best you could hope that somebody would say, all right, well, here's a tariff. It's temporary. It's extremely temporary. It's 90 days while we give this industry or whatever a chance to fix what's internally wrong with it, to bring itself back up to a point where it can compete with the rest of the industry. Theoretically, there's something in there that is legitimate, but of course it's not. It's a legitimate attempt to solve a problem that may be a wider problem that some other people think they're interested in. It's not a business itself would do that. They wouldn't impose a tariff, though. They would just say, all right, we have to reshift. We have 90 days to go through everything that we have and figure out what's wrong and change the business and make it work. We don't need government to do that for us. We don't need them to force a change in the industry for us to improve ourselves. Let's just do that. But the government does that. It does it throws its tariff on there, and that makes it immoral because it's not a free market choice. It's not an individual choice. It's a violation of individuals and their property. That includes the products themselves. It's a violation of that property, and I have proof of that. You don't have to take my word for it. We'll jump into that one here in just a second. I want to go through the rest of this just really quickly. These links are up here for you to be able to investigate and look for yourself. But there's a point in here about trying to understand tariffs and how they're used to restrict imports. They simply increase the price of goods and services purchased from another country, and the idea is that makes them less attractive to domestic customers. Not all of this is quote. But it is exactly what they're saying. There are a couple types of tariffs that go into that. There's a specific tariff that's levied directly. This is the $500 tariff on a car thing that I was just talking about. Then there's an ad valorem tariff, and that's a percentage, and that's so that every car comes out has a 5%. So if it's a cheaper car, maybe it's $500, maybe it's $5,000. Doesn't matter. It's about the percentage of the import's value. Why would a government impose tariffs? To raise revenues? I already told you all this, but I'm just reiterating it in their terms. This is them. They, the proverbial they, without maybe so much of the political understand. There's no need. Again, there's no need to have a political division when you're an investor, because you realize that other than understanding where the Democrats versus the Republicans are going to shift money within government and within the society, within the economy, they don't have to worry about whether or not government is going to follow a certain economic path, because that's what government does. It follows the same economic path regardless of who's in there. So governments impose tariffs to raise revenues, to protect domestic industries. It doesn't work. I've already proven that. We proved that with the graph. To protect domestic consumers, that's a complete lie, or it's a complete misstatement of what happens, because they're not protecting consumers. If they were protecting consumers, the best thing to do to protect consumers is to open markets, make them open, and to not cause the consumer to have to look other places to solve their needs and wants, to pay more money to solve their needs and wants. You're not protecting the domestic consumer. You're not protecting us by imposing tariffs. You're protecting that industry theoretically, we already know that it doesn't work. I say it over and over again. It doesn't really work, but that's your auspice for doing it. It doesn't work, so you're not doing it for us. So if you take out, there's a fourth one, to protect national interests. The government's imposed tariffs to raise revenue, to protect domestic industries, to protect domestic consumers, and to protect national interests. Well, two of those are a lie. So they actually do it to raise revenues and to protect national interests. Not our interests, not your interests, not my interests, not anybody's interests in particular, except maybe that industry. But otherwise, it's the national interest, as in federal government's national interest, as in the interests of the guys who run the nation, not the nation itself. There's almost no interests in the nation, generally speaking, beyond the things that we all need and want, that we have to have, the sort of shelter and food and water, protection, these sorts of things. Other than that, there's not really anything that's consistent from one town, one city to the next for another in terms of what we need or what we want, and let alone that there be some central authority to decide that we can or can't have those things, or that those things should cost more than the person who sells them is willing to sell them to us for. And that's part of getting into that it's a violation of individuals, a violation of property rights, and again, you won't have to take my word for it. And so those are the reasons that they do it. They say that there's unintended side effects. They can make domestic industries less efficient. Of course they do. It was already less efficient to begin with. That's why they put the tariff in there in the first place. They can hurt domestic consumers. Of course, it's a lack of competition that pushes up prices. There's all the things that go in with forcing consumers to buy from one place, from one source, or from the source that you want, the source says that you want them to, and not where they want to. And it's an unnatural manipulation of market choices. They can generate tensions by favoring specific industries or geographic regions. You're talking about the nation. This is exactly what I was just talking about, how there's the interests don't necessarily cross borders and cross those imaginary lines. Also, an attempt to pressure a rival country can cause and devolve into an unproductive cycle of retaliation. What I was just talking about, stacking those things on top of each other, those problems of trade on top of each other, and you get a trade war. And they say there are some pros and cons. Let's see. Pros, it produces revenues only for a short period of time, and it's not sustainable. It opens negotiations, like a bully grabbing somebody and giving them a noogie and putting them in a headlock and giving them a noogie opens negotiations. Say uncle, that's how it opens negotiations. Supports the nation's goals. Again, no it doesn't, because the nation, all of us, do not have that singular goal. That's a lie. Make a market predictable. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. Complete lie. It can only make a market predictable insofar as as in the people that are closest to that market and the potential to invest in it or to get something out of it are going to receive that initial manipulated the rewards, I guess you could call it, from that initial manipulated market, and it would only trickle down from there. It's the same old. It's the rich people at the top getting the benefits, while we get none or little or none of the benefits, and in this fact, we have to pay the cost. It's a tax. Let's see, the cons are, didn't it just sound like all of those were cons? The cons are created issues between governments. Yeah, it creates issues between governments, creates issues between people in the same city across the street from each other, initiates trade wars. That's all they can come up with. All of those are cons. None of those are good things. Again, for the investor it is, because they know it's going to happen every time. So they're explaining it in those terms. That's the way that I see it. And then they go through and they talk about each of those advantages, and they talk about some of the history, and we're really pushing this. So I wanted to get in here, and I wanted to make sure that we got outside of current events and talked about tariffs outside of what's happening in the current political environment. Not that you can get too far away from that ever in America, but I wanted to step back just a little bit, so we're not talking about 2025. We're not talking about the current election. So I went back just a little bit, dug a little bit deeper, and I think it paid off because that, as I was saying, I can prove that these tariffs are an attack on property rights and freedom, and I don't even have to say it. I think I've already made a case for it without specifically really spelling that out. But this particular Mises Institute, that's what I said. I could have stopped with the first thing that popped up about tariffs, and trust me, there were many. But I went and I did a little bit digging, and I wanted to find something that was more important, that spoke to conservatives, that spoke to libertarians, that spoke to voluntarists, that spoke to anarchists that are supporting these tariffs, that are economically ignorantly supporting these tariffs. They are also, if you must consider, even if you believe that the economics is right, that you can use it as leverage, that it's a tool, what you're not looking at is the fact that tariffs are an attack on property rights and freedom. And this Mises article is from 2019. It's by Per Byland, and I'm a fan of Per. I've been reading his things for years, and he just always has a really great take on things. And I'm not going to read this to you, but I am going to catch this nice little Rothbardian quote here from the Libertarian Forum, Volume 1, page 184. Libertarians, if they have any personal philosophy beyond freedom from coercion, are supposed to be, at the very least, individualists. And that's where I'm going to leave it at. And that, because it's the same for the conservatives, supposedly. It's the same for the little L libertarians, the big L libertarians, the anarchists, of course, the voluntarists, the agorists, all of these other people who say that it's about individual choice. Then when you're talking about individual choice, but you're supporting government manipulations of the market, you are confused. We'll just leave it at that. We'll just say you are confused. I think you need to read that. Conservatives, libertarians, fake-ass anarchists that claim that it's all right for government to pass tariffs. If they did it to us first, we can do it back. It's the argument of a retarded 5-year-old. I don't even understand where adults get answers like that to any serious question. So as if the tariffs and the damage that they do aren't bad enough, the barriers that they create, and the political class that uses the turmoil, they use it to create wealth for themselves. They benefit from it. They profit for themselves. You think that this is any sort of a coincidence? I don't think so, and there are others that don't think so. They look specifically at what happened here this last week with the markets and the threat of tariffs and how it manipulated markets, and who might have profited from those manipulated markets. And there are people. Do you think that rich people, politically connected people in the know, use world events within the economy, terrorist events, let's say something like maybe, 9/11, something like that, to get rich on, advanced knowledge of, understanding of, maybe a hint of, first at the top, closest to the money, get to take advantage of it while it's collapsing. People praising the other day the stock market going up, the largest third largest gain since World War II. But did you know that the two biggest gains since then, before this third, was in 2008, right smack dab in the middle of the last Great Recession? Do you really think that we're on the path right now to fixing things, that it's going to get better, that the dollar is going to be repaired, that the people who are in the know, who are closest to the money, aren't going to take total, full advantage of that and try to shield and insulate themselves from the damages they cause? Of course they will. Cody Johnston is coming up next. Stick around here on Toward Anarchy and listen to this.
The best thing in the world would be for all countries to engage in free trade. But even if other countries don't, then the sensible, rational thing for us to do, all by ourselves. After all, we're the great leader of the free world. We're not simply a camp follower. The idea of our going around and imposing quotas on imports from Hong Kong and from Singapore and from all those other terribly threatening countries, it seems to me it's just demeaning and degrading for a great power to engage in acts like that. So in my opinion, the right course of action for the United States would be unilaterally to get rid of its restrictions and say to the world, come and sell your goods here.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy. You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. The air is unfit to breathe. Our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crying in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
All right, here we go into hour number 2, towardanarchy.com to follow along. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while now. Once again, a big score on the pod match system. With everything that's going on in the world, our new president, there's a new leader guy up there in the north, too, that is hanging around now making some noise. And just all this politics and economics. When Cody Johnston reached out to me and said, hey, let's have a chat, and it turned out that he was the weird Canadian, I said, yes, let's have a chat, because I'm sure before we invade or before they become another state, we might want to get to know some of these people. So, no, I appreciate you reaching out, Cody, and great to get a chance to talk to you. You're on YouTube at _weird_Canadian, and I will put that up there at towardanarchy.com on the page so that people don't have to try to remember that or write that out or get it right.
I'm sure if you just search it up as a Google request, it comes up.
Yeah, right. Have you managed to carve out your little niche there on the internet? And when you type in weird Canadian, it's usually you?
Yeah, I found the correct username, I guess, because not many people want to be associated with weird and Canadian, I guess. I got lucky.
Okay. It's just the Canadian part's bad enough, right?
Yeah. I was actually considering the newbie originally, because I'm new to Newfoundland.
Okay, all right. No, I get it. I like that. That's good.
But there's already the nerdy newbie.
Okay, all right. No, that works too. So, wow. Politics and economics is up there, but I don't really want to talk about that. Tell me about you. Yeah, tell me about you, the weird Canadian. Tell me what you're up to, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Maybe we'll talk about some of these other silly things.
So I'll go into my background a little bit first. So I'm a software developer, technically a full stack developer. I've been a full stack developer since I started my career in 2016. And I started my career with the Ministry of Transportation in Ontario. So 8 years of government programming, figuring out how the government system works, and learning all I can about programming at the same time. Just a year and a half ago, me and my partner decided to up and leave Ontario and move to Newfoundland for a better life, if I would say it. We're getting closer to nature. We have, I would say, $1 million home on the water, beautiful views, and just a freedom that we never would have gotten in Ontario. and getting to be able to build my channel.
Is it just space?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just space.
80% of our province is what's called crown land, which means it's government-owned land. We can traverse it, we can cross it. There's trails for off-roading all across our island. So you can actually take an off-road vehicle all across our island.
Fun.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
Fishing, hunting, everything you can think of. As just homesteading, great place to be. Very welcoming people. But it's given me this insight into Canada that I never had before. So my channel is focused towards just giving insights into our problems, our passions, what we want to do, how we are as a people, and just bringing that out to the world. Because I feel like Canada doesn't really have a big presence on the world stage. But our history and the way we've always dealt with the external world has always been to help. So the fact that we're not on the world stage, it kind of hurts me a little bit because we should be. We don't showcase who we are as a people enough, but we're always there to step up when it's needed. That's the Canadian people. We step up when needed. So yeah, my channel is just to showcase that and try and get us back on track. If that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. I think it does. I think that I think we're all sort of having a little bit of an identity crisis, and just remembering who we are and that we're all just people. I think that's an important thing right now, because we're being seriously misled by our so-called leaders and the bankers. Man, you guys are really screwed now, man. You guys got you want to talk about globalist banker? Holy crap! He was the governor of the Bank of England, right? And then he was the governor of the Bank of Canada, and now he's prime minister. Boy, you guys are in for it.
He's honestly, he's hiding all of his credentials, all of his history from the Canadian people right now, and it pisses me off to no end.
Really?
Because, the Canadian people do not know who Mark Carney is.
Really?
Yeah, not at all.
I mean, I guess that's not surprising, because it's not an elected position, right? It's an appointed position, and it's almost like a figurehead position. He doesn't really. There's a governor of Canada. That's who actually does what the Crown says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's basically just somebody to put a face to the parties, right? Like our global unity is this one face, but
yeah, right, yeah. Well, hey, at least it's no longer the bastard son of Castro.
That's true. I mean, I did vote for him. I can't say anything against that, because I did in 2008 and 2012 vote for him. But I feel like everybody's kind of had a shit pick for the past decade or so it's not like we really had a choice. And that's what I really want to highlight in anything is we don't really have a choice if you actually think about it.
Yeah. No, Americans don't have a choice either. They like to pretend they do, but they don't. It's fundamentally flawed, the notion that we elect our leaders when we didn't choose them to run in the first place. So
I'm very well versed in world politics as well. So I watched the Brexit situation. I watched everything to go on with your election, and I saw that as a foreshadowing to ours. That's why I decided to come out and promote my message, because I'm sick of the polarity. We have real issues that we can solve. It's the leaders that don't want to solve them. So my channel is to promote individuals to solve those problems.
That's really cool. So who are you talking to? How are you reaching out to people? Obviously, you're on the Podmatch system, which is fantastic. I don't know if you do the paid thing or not. I don't. Yeah. I don't. Only do the one episode a week, so I don't. I have plenty of people ready to talk to me all the time. But it seems to me like the Podmatch thing would be really cool. Like it works out really well for people.
It's funny because I actually just had a conversation or a small little talk with the CEO,
Alex.
Yeah. And just kind of said Podmatch is actually like really good because it's allowing newer content creators to actually get what they want to come at. Like, I didn't think I could do the messaging until I was a guest on somebody else's channel, and they resonated with my opinions and my ideas, right? So it's really given a lot of freedom to me, especially to be able to say, hey, I'm confident in who I am and what I'm trying to do, and this is my path forward.
That's awesome.
That's why I quit my job on Tuesday. I was like,
yeah, you were saying that just before we got started. That's wild. So you're a full-time creator now.
Yeah, I just stepped away from a fintech development job, so high income to no income. My partner's going to support me, thankfully, as a nurse. But we don't have to worry. That's the nice part. We don't have to worry about money coming in because we're sustaining ourselves. We're in a province that is a lower income, so food is cheaper, housing's cheaper, things are cheaper because the province is supporting us, right? Like they're trying their best to promote what they have here. And local farming, local everything is bringing prices down. So we're in a good position where I can now take this step with literally no backing. I'm taking my savings to do all of this. So over the next year, I'm using my entire savings to promote my message and seeing how far I can get. And in the next year, if I'm profitable and can continue, I will. And if I'm not, then I'm going to switch directions and go into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, try a new thing.
Yeah, I found a new passion for me. And thankfully, just getting that slowdown, that second to like actually think about what I want in my life is allowing me to do it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't get that. They don't get a chance to just to step back from their lives and say, wait a minute, is this really where I'm going? Is this what I want to do? Is this where I'm going to be for the rest of my life? Do I have a shot at it? We all have a shot. We all just got to take it. You got to step away from that grind and take that shot. That's really cool. You said you listened and watched our election here. What'd you think?
A lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
I have a lot to say about the Democrats because as far as I'm concerned, they're the ones who failed.
It kind of seems that way, doesn't it?
Because they were so restrictive in how they've restricted themselves, like, it was all they're doing. Their language, their inability to say, hey, we understand that there is controversy, but we're gonna hit it head on, as opposed to just shying away from it. That was a big thing, and a lot of misunderstanding. And I don't want to say, like, what is happening right now it's a problem. It's a problem. But it's the way that it's being done, not what is being done. If that makes sense.
You have to elaborate. You have to get specific because there's a lot being done. We're talking about the president, and we're talking about a president with the magic pen. I mean, guys going crazy.
And I'm so glad our political system does not have that.
Doesn't allow for that. Yeah, ours doesn't really either, but they sure seem to have taken a shine to it.
So my real insight into, or my thoughts into what's happening with Trump right now is everything he's doing is a f***ing smokescreen. Like, he's just trying to, like, confuse the shit out of everybody because he's trying to root out the corruption that he is pretty much one of the leaders of. He knows how it was built in, how the system promotes it, and he's dismantling it in a way that's getting regular people to actually learn about how the system works. Right? I think I have a good understanding of how everything kind of fell, and I've reflected on a lot of it, and because I've hated it. I was so for Kamala. I wanted her to win so bad. But I'm also not seeing this as a bad thing.
Interesting.
Because it's uniting the rest of the world.
Okay, well, fair enough. I'm not sure if that's what we were trying to accomplish here in America, but I guess.
Yeah. It's literally making us all look at ourselves and say, do we want to be this person? And the resounding answer is no.
It seems right? That's interesting. Well, then, I guess that begs the question of how do you prevent it, though, because it's not like this happened in a vacuum. It's not like there wasn't plenty of sort of liberal thinking and Democrats and voting and tariffing and all sorts of other things going on, long before Trump got there. So I just don't know that everybody looking at America and saying we don't want to be like that doesn't necessarily say that they want to be any better, unfortunately, because neither one of these representatives of what America is supposed to be has done any particular good job of managing America. Not these last couple of them, not the ones before them, not 50 years ago. It's been a while since the place was managed fairly well, if it was managed fairly well at all. So I don't know. I hope that maybe we see that, and I want to believe. I've been trying to keep an open mind. I've followed it all along, of course. It's happening here in America. And, I went and I read the Project 2025 documents, and I watched with the platform of the Democrats to see what they were talking about, and they never talked about anything, and it seemed like they never made an effort to stop what was happening, and that makes you stop and wonder. But then you see the guy, he gets in there, and you start thinking about what happened in Argentina here not so long ago. You have a complete turnaround of their economy, and their government has been their central government has been sort of gutted, and you think, oh, well, hey, is that something that could happen? Could we turn back the clock on some of this government power, some of these things that they don't necessarily need to have control over, but you just see them doing the same things over and over again. You talk about there's Doge, and oh yeah, we're rooting out corruption, and we're finding all this waste, except at the same time we're raising the debt ceiling. What does that tell anybody who's paying attention?
And hurting people, hurting citizens. Like, I am so appalled at the level of inhumanity that's coming out of the government right now. That is one of the biggest things that, I don't say. I understand what they're trying to do. I don't agree with how they're doing it. Because I think it can be certain. I think we can, as a people, go into our governments and say, hey, we have things that aren't serving us, or contracts that are opaque, especially when it comes to your Pentagon and the defense budget. There's no way you should have failed 7 audits. No.
Yeah, right.
Right? We built the system over the last 200 years. Everybody's built their last system over 200 years. And for the past, I would say, 100 years, we've only started growing past 50. So our government has been built by children and never looked at by adults to reform.
I get what you're saying there. Obviously, it wasn't. They were all adults, but I know what you mean. You're in a sort of infancy of understanding individual liberty, let's say, since we're talking about the founding of America, I guess, relatively anyway. Because that's what it was about, supposedly, right? Or break away from the controls of the church and the controls of the state and all that, and everybody gets to go out there and do their own thing, and everybody's happy. And so, and the last 100 years thing really fits with the banker takeover, since we mentioned bankers here. Ultimately, because that's when the Federal Reserve comes around, and that's when monetary policy around the world begins to shift clearly.
That was a big, 1970s when the U.S. went off the gold standard.
Oh yeah, and that's just one more event in a chain of, because you get 1913 Federal Reserve, and then so how long did it take, 57 years before they've destroyed the dollar enough that they had to go and confiscate people's gold and take, I mean, there's so many things that it wasn't even that long before they had to do the gold confiscation. Hell, that was 30 something. So that was only 15, 18 years, something like that.
But so this is the thing I want to emphasize is for the last 100 years, we have had a society that has been formed over scarcity, right? Mm-hmm. No resources, no building, like no real means of getting food. The last 100 has been us putting food on people's tables, getting medicine to where it needs to go, like this kind of thing, and it's become a shift in terms of how do we serve the people best to how do we serve the few best. And right now the few best are winning, right? Like we have that scarcity mindset of, oh, if I don't push this person down, I'm not going to be able to eat. But we live in a world where you don't have to push somebody down to eat anything. We do in certain parts of the world. I'm not saying like we don't have that, especially in Canada. We actually have, we're restricting gun laws, and we have people that need hunting to survive in Canada right now. And our public don't understand that. But we're getting to a place where we don't have to worry about food. We're going to be able to print it. Like, so why do we have to push somebody down to get a food on somebody else's plate?
Okay, that's an interesting take. I wonder, I like the angle on the technology, but there's something fundamentally missing from the notion of being able to print something is that there has to be a pool to print from. There has to be something to print from. So the food already has to exist. It's not like you're going to go onto the computer and say, hey, make me some food, and it just appears out of nowhere. So that's not going to necessarily help. But I see what you're getting at, yes.
And on top of that, we already actually have that data. All the manufacturers that currently make our food and our pre-made meals already have those algorithms, everything based down to a core ingredient, right? So all we need is that information to be freely distributed, then we don't have to worry.
Fair enough.
I'm very big advocate for open source and transparency in everything. My entire channel, I give everything away for free.
Yeah.
Anything paywalled is extra.
Yeah, no, there's no point, especially in a flooded information market where you charge for information. You let people pay you for it. That's the way it has to be. I think that's the only way to keep it honest. You can definitely go get some money somewhere to have your voice put out there, but then there's always the question of, where's the money? How do you keep the money happy? And no, I don't want to play that game at all. We play too many games already with the money and the way. I want
to play that game to flip the board.
What's that?
I want to play that game to flip the board.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I understand every fucking loophole in the system, and if any loophole I don't understand, I'm going to find somebody who does.
Sure.
And I'm going to flip the board when I'm at the top. I'm done with this. I'm done with this system.
Yeah, you're not the first person to say that. I know I say it myself quite a lot, but I've also realized after all this time that there's not really any changing it, and so that you're better off just to concentrate on your own thing and not make your... If your goal is to change things, then go change things, not to sit around and try to convince other people that this thing needs to be changed and that we have to get together to change it, because that's the best that we could hope for when we're talking about this sort of democracy thing, is that we convince a few other people to get involved with us, and then we go and change it. So the alternative to that is that we have no power, and then the alternative to that is that we have complete power over ourselves as individuals and what we do. And so I applaud you wanting to move forward and do that and take it on. I just will caution you that I think that you'll find that if that can be a goal, but I don't think it can be like the goal. I think the goal has to be for you to be happy in your space, doing your thing, talking to the people you want to talk to about the things you want to talk about, and that naturally, presumably, those things, everything else falls in place. People get the message. They hear it over time, and they realize from you that you're happy and that you're content in what you're doing. That's what I've found over the time. And I've even done some science and some math along the way to try to find out why there's no particular reason why it works. And there's no answer. There's no one answer, because there's no one way to reach people. There's no one way that's successful, and there's no one idea that is better than the rest of them, especially when you haven't investigated that idea yet. You're only just hearing about it for the first time. So, it's, wow. You're taking on a task.
Yes. And you know what? To speak to what makes me happy, it took me 33 years to figure this out.
Right.
This makes me happy. I am finally at a point in my life where I think I can change. And this isn't my only avenue. I have backup plans. I'm planning on being an entrepreneur as well, building up businesses in my local area, just to, even if I don't get to all of Canada, at the very least, I'm building up my province.
No, that's the very best. Don't even think of it that way. That's absolutely the very best, is that you're right there in your backyard, in your community, affecting people and helping people. That's wonderful. Absolutely.
And that's what makes me happy.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I wish more people would find that. Not everybody's going to be able to do the same thing in terms of heading down a path. They're not all going to hear us and all go start a podcast tomorrow. But, maybe you give it just that one more thought that, what am I doing here? Is this what I want to do? Is this where I want to be? Where am I going? Those are hard questions for people to answer. I don't want to have to answer. I'd rather just have fun and just live day to day and not necessarily worry about all those things. But it's not really conducive to having good relationships or running good businesses. And I like both of those things.
And it really did come down to that. Like, I only came up with this whole idea and this whole epiphany a couple months ago. When I first started filming and first started getting into it. This is really making me happy, because I'm a talker, and I've always thought I hated talking to people, because nobody ever really understood what I was trying to say. I've always had people interpret for me, because I am neurodivergent, I have ADHD, I have issues with regular conversation. But yeah, finally just come to this point of I can communicate. And I know how to storytell. And this is what I want to do. I want to communicate with people. I want to be the bridge to change. I want to be able to have these conversations of, hey, you might not understand this fully. Can we discuss it? Like, as human beings, let's come up with a solution together and then present it. Right? Like, I don't say I have, I say I have no control. I am literally oblivious to everything. But the things I do know, I'm going to work towards, and anybody is welcome to tell me otherwise and to teach me otherwise. Right? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring understanding back to our world, to try and literally get us to these conversations. To, hey, like, you might want to look into this or that, or here's some ideas, or brainstorming's how I live. Like, I source most of my ideas to all of my friends groups, my family, to understand their takes. And then I come up with my own. That's critical thinking, So I just...
That's something a lot of people don't do. A lot of people lack the ability to think critically. They've been programmed. They've been set up to fail. And there is a level of breaking that programming, breaking that mindset that sends you in the direction of just going along to get along and never really excelling. And what happens is, this is a reason that I do this. There's a couple of reasons that I do this. One, I just like chatting with people. Two, I've been doing radio for 35 years now. Three, it's an exercise in knowing my world and knowing what's going on around me, whether anybody else does or not. I know I do. I know I have a decent understanding of what is happening to me, especially through sort of political and social pop culture. It's not just an exercise in knowing, it's an exercise in exercising the ability to think and the ability to speak, and to not go into older age regretting not doing whatever. I don't even care what it is. That's not going to be a problem for me, but I see other people do it all the time. I see them live their entire life and follow a certain path that they've been told is the path to success, and by the time they come to the end of their life, they're going, what the hell did I do with everything? I got the pension and the gold watch, and that's all I got out of the deal, and I missed out on my life.
And you know what? That was my plan. Up until I moved from Ontario, even though my parents were not happy when I made this decision, I left my cushy government job, pension, nice salary, house, everything, for instability. Because as successful as I was in no way happy. My partner saved me. Like, I was drinking myself to the bone and not.
That's a quick way to kill yourself right there.
My partner, God bless her heart, she is the most beautiful human being on the planet. She saved me, and I'm so grateful for her. But yeah, like, this is where I think a lot of people are, and it doesn't have to be that way. I've been shown how to do it better, and I want to show everybody else how to do it better.
Yeah, all right. Well, I wish you the best of luck at it, because I just know there's so many that end up in heartbreak, because it's a lofty idea. It's altruistic. It sounds all great and fine and everything, but if you ever let it be anything more than what you want to do, you're going to set yourself up for just some heartbreak. Because I've tried, that's been my whole game all along, is to play the other side. I'm not dumb. I don't have to ask the questions. I don't need the answers told to me. So the only thing that I need to do is figure out who's playing what game and who's going to win. And what I ultimately decided is that there was only one game, and that's that over there, and then there's life. And I just decided life. I just decided, it's even through this process of this show in the last 5 years, 6 years, whatever, and just doing it, and just going from one point of, I need to do this. I need to do this for freedom, for liberty, for all the right reasons. And, it's not about me. And that, I've switched that around. It's absolutely about me. It's all about me, because I can't tell you anything about anyone else. And I can't make you do anything else. I have no power over anything but me. And so I present me now instead of any pretense of trying to change people or to change to break into the zeitgeist or something. And I know people do it. I know it happens, and there are people out there that make amazing waves and do amazing things for people. I apparently was not going to be one of those. I decided to just take my spot here and be happy.
And I completely understand that. Like, I'm going to give a go at it, just like you did, because it's something I feel I need to do, something I need to experience. I hope you find it. I hope you find a path. I hope you do, because it's obvious what path I took. I came up. I grew up in Colorado, and Colorado is where the Libertarian Party started, and the Libertarian Party was started by anarchists. So I have that as my background, and that's my understanding of reality, and that's how I've lived my life. And then that's what I'm talking about, where I've tried to
I joined the system. I've done all the things. I did the things. I went to the school. I went and I got the degree, and I went and had a family and 2.3 kids or 3.4 or something. I don't know. There's a few of them running around here somewhere. I don't know where they're at. Man, most of them are old enough now at this point that it doesn't really matter. But I don't know. I tried all these different. I even ran for my district to try to get Dr. Ron Paul elected. I was already an anarchist at the time. I've been an anarchist my entire life, but I was never a voter. But I went through the process. I showed up at my precinct and we voted, all 6 of us for all 30,000 or 50,000 people in the precinct. This is democracy, mind you, to elect one person to send for the Republican Party from our district in Colorado. And I went all the way up to state, and I stood out in front of the state Republican convention in a black hood and an orange jumpsuit that said FEMA on the back of it and shackles, and tried to get elected to go further and go national and to try to get Dr. Paul elected. But if you know anything about what happened to Dr. Paul in the election, obviously the system turned against him and was not going to let him get elected at all. But I didn't even vote. I didn't even show up to the poll. Why would I? I was just there to see what was going on in the system. So you see what I mean? I've played the game to see what's going on, and all I've ever found is that it's just their game. That's it. You want to be in their game and benefit from their game, or you want to be on the outside of it and just trying to just keep it at arm's length at best. When it's so pervasive, it's everywhere.
I'm the mind that the game's almost done.
You think so? You think there's a time limit?
I think there is, especially with AI.
Interesting. We might have to talk about that.
Yes. So the first thing I'll preface this with is, I've been plugged into the internet since I was 10, 11.
Sure.
One of that is a preamble to feelings, if that makes any sense, to how the internet is shifting.
Okay, fair enough.
The internet is shifting towards good for the first time in, I think, ever. I'm excited and scared.
What's that?
I'm excited and scared.
Okay.
Because for the first time ever, positivity on the internet is prevailing.
Okay.
This may be just because I'm joining new social circles, but there is a good percentage of the population trying to actively change how we discuss and commute or communicate over the internet. This big shift happened when Reddit, during the 2020 Reddit segregation, when everybody decided to just say, hey, like, Reddit's going IPO, they're censoring, we're going to find new platforms. That brought a shift towards open protocols, which means building social networks that you can take your following, your identity, everything, and plug it into every other social network. You don't lose your following, you don't lose your people, and developers are starting to build these systems based on open protocols so that they can't be taken advantage of anymore. I think the next 5 years, we're about to see the most hopeful side of the internet we have ever seen. Like, I think we're actually trying to teach the internet to grow up and be an adult.
It'd be neat to do because, our problem with communicating on the internet is not necessarily the tools. Those of us who use the tools and know how to use the tools and know how to communicate very well with these tools. It is a fundamental lack of the ability to communicate with each other and to be polite with each other, especially when we're not in proximity of each other, and there's not the threat of danger for ultimately saying and doing things that aren't acceptable in a one-on-one conversation. And so I would love to see something not unlike that. And I know there's plenty of places across the internet where they're working on it, and they're working on all these sorts of different tools and things where I can keep literally my website and my identity and all these things right on my phone if I wanted to, and broadcast and edit them from everywhere. They'd be available to anyone, anywhere, no limitations, no having to go through Cox or whatever to get to something. All of these things, yeah, all the technology is known this, but I don't know if it's going to help us communicate any better. Obviously, the easier we can communicate with each other, the better, but that doesn't necessarily improve the quality of the communication. We've seen that. That's what's happened here with the internet. It is much easier for us to communicate. And people like ourselves who take advantage of it, people who consider ourselves communicators and want to communicate with people most of the time, we've taken advantage of it, and we've talked to people all around the world. I know I have. I've spoken, and I have been for 30 years now at this point. So at least, because it was, 93, 94, 95 when I first broke out, just like everybody, broke out of the boxes of AOL and places like that and stepped out into the larger realm of the internet, the connected world, whatever. And other technologies, and began talking to people in Australia and Pakistan and, just wherever, and randomly, have no idea. That was one of the best things about it at the time. And the beauty of that is that it was still low enough speed and connections in most cases that you didn't have to worry about whether or not it was, the whole Cartman thing where you're flipping through the guys on the internet. Oh, no, there's a dick. That guy's got his dick out. You gotta wade through the dicks, right?
Yeah.
So you find you didn't have to worry about that because people were just chatting.
And, it was an exploratory thing. Nobody really knew anybody outside their social circles at that time. I didn't even realize some of my best friends growing up were based out of, India, Japan, Canada, or the U.S. I didn't even know that I was playing with these people. We were just having fun, enjoying ourselves, connecting. And that, really has, I think, given me a good insight into the world, because while a lot of people are conditioned to, stay within their lane, and I've never had a problem with language. I've never had a problem. I've had a problem with language. I can barely speak English, to be honest with you. I don't speak any other language, but I've never found language as a barrier to understand where somebody else is coming from.
Communicator wouldn't. One of my favorite stories is meeting a couple of gentlemen from the USSR, 20, 25 years ago, something like that. They were a couple of geologists, and they themselves were an interesting a picture of their society, because one of them was clearly well-to-do while the other one was not, but they were both educators, both professors, both scientists, and neither one of them spoke a lick of English, and I can assure you I speak no Russian. I'm also one of those. My command of the English language is, it's all right, and that's about it. There's not much else. I read a little bit of some other languages, but no. And I was with these two gentlemen for a week to show them around my city, and I did. And we had a fantastic time, and we communicated, and we had no trouble understanding each other, even though we weren't able to hold a conversation like this. We still enjoyed. We saw, the beauty and the neat things about the cities, and they get to see new places and explain. They understood English and speak it, but they're used to hearing it. I'm sure most people are used to hearing English whether they speak it or not.
And that's the biggest thing that made me jump at this, is because language is no longer a barrier.
Right.
My
hasn't been for a long time. Yeah.
My entire channel is a dedication to language is no longer a barrier.
No, you see how I got around that one many, many moons ago. Junior high, remembering, I'm going to be a computer programmer, and I'm going to grow up and I'm going to learn to speak these languages, and I'll speak Mexican, and I'll speak Russian, and maybe I'll learn Japanese too. And the only thing I did learn was how to code computers, and now I can speak any language I want, because all I have to do is have a computer.
Well, you don't even need a computer anymore. I have
Yeah, right. I know the heads. Yeah. I keep looking at them. I was thinking about buying a cheap set just to see if they worked really well.
I purchased them purely because I am going to have conversations with French people as well as some other languages, so I'm going to need them in the future. But have
you tried them at all yet? Are they?
I haven't yet.
haven't yet. I've heard good things and I've heard bad things about the real-time translation part of it, that it can be a little bit hard. You almost have it kind of like, here, just speak into this, and but that'll be neat to see. I keep seeing them. I've got to get me one of those. Just give me a cheap one. I'll try it out.
Yeah, and that's what I was like. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be talking to a bunch of people, and I don't know language, so I might as well just invest. And thankfully, I'm building my content creation site as a business, so everything's kind of right off anyways.
Oh, yeah. That's good, yeah. I just piggybacked on another business, so I didn't have to worry about it. I have no cost for the show.
I'm learning all about business right now, so it's like getting that all started up. But I've learned from everybody on the internet. Like Gary Fee was very good in like teaching about business, and like I don't know if you know Caleb Taylor from Financial Audit, teaching about finances. Like there's so many creators out there that are just trying to teach you how to do life. And these learned experiences are just giving people the tools and the ability to do it. And they're free. Like
that's the best part, right? It's free. Yeah. No commitment. If you want it, if it works, if it's good, use it or don't. Yeah.
And we're in a good point right now where it's cheap enough for the hobbyists and the people who are interested to get involved.
Yeah.
But it's out of the reach of the basic. So like you get a little bit of an opportunity window here where I can capitalize.
Before the trolls jump in.
Yes. So I'm taking full opportunity to capitalize on this market right now. I'm not gonna lie.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what's the next step then? How do you see taking it to the next level? What are you gonna do? That you made the move, you made the commitment to do it. Now you're doing it. Just every day, or?
So I'm actually running 3 businesses at the moment. The content creation, the Weird Canadian. A 3D printing business that I started with my partner.
Fun.
So like place that right here. I got a little 3D printed dragon egg.
That's awesome, yeah.
And I'm also running a non-profit to help the Cubans right now with my family. My parents have been going to Cuba for over 30 years. And they are having a very hard time, especially with the U.S. sanctions and everything going on in the world, to just get COVID out of their country. So we're helping get medical supplies down there, food, anything that they need to just kind of support the communities out there.
How'd you end up doing that?
My parents have been going to Cuba for 30 years.
Okay, yeah, because you said something about the family there, and I didn't quite catch the connection. Your parents have been going there for a while, so you're familiar with the...
Yeah, they love going
there. They didn't bring Castro over for...
No.
All right, okay. That's a callback, guys, to something I said earlier in the show.
The people are so, like... I would honestly say they were more Canadian than most Canadians. Like, they are so respectful and joyous and loving, and they have prejudice, but they don't put it on you, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, most of the rest of the world actually does accept that there are prejudices, and they just leave the people the hell alone. It's only in places like America and these sort of white Western cultures where white women are trying to force us to accept people that we don't want to accept, be friends with people we don't want to be friends with. Why can't we just leave each other the hell alone? As much as we can work together, we can just leave each other the hell alone, too. That's perfectly fine. And as far as silencing people, no. Look, if you take the racists and the other and you put them over there, let them speak really loudly so I know that they're over there, so I don't go over there. I stay over here where there's not loud racist people.
Yep. Completely makes sense in a logical standpoint, but apparently that's not the option.
I guess, right?
But so in terms of like what the future looks for me, right now I'm focusing on trying to figure out what my schedule looks like because I've been working on somebody else's schedule for so long. I really want to figure out my balance. But I am also heavily diving into my channel. I'm going out to businesses. I'm going and finding passions, Canadian passions, how they got there, why they got there, what drives them, and then what issues.
Is that who you're talking to? There's a lot of business people and entrepreneurs and stuff, generally speaking.
I'm also speaking to industry, so I've also got a couple farmers I'm talking to. I'm also planning on going out to the reserve and talking to a few of the indigenous population to get...
Oh, that's right. You guys have some of those too, don't you?
Yeah.
People have been pushed over in the corner.
Yeah. So I really want to emphasize that anything that goes forward with Canada, they're the primary benefiters. Because that is only right. But I have to get them involved, so I'm gonna go out and reach out to them.
Well, yeah, because otherwise you're just another white woman running around telling the indigenous people, the colored people, the whatever people that, whatever difference it is, how everybody's supposed to behave and accept them, yeah. Yeah, no, you definitely got to have them involved. That's one thing that we lack down here when we're talking about these manipulators getting involved and trying to drive society in a particular direction, is that they don't have the backing of the people that they supposedly are defending in most of these cases. So, yeah, that's good. That's really neat.
The other primary focus is to also get their language analyzed, cataloged, and usable. So I'm looking to get...
Are they losing their language? Is that what you're getting at?
No, they're not losing their language. If anything, it's actually becoming more populous. I'm actually surprised. But I want to bring it towards the AI tools. They're not.
Oh, okay.
Right? So I want to be able to speak to everybody in Canada.
Sure.
And that involves integrating their languages into the tools that allow me to speak to them.
That's cool, yeah. Well, those things are only just beginning to exist. I know. As somebody who's been doing this for a long time, I'm only just now able to do my own titles with my own subtitles without it being a hassle, without it being a major thing where I have to do the work. Yeah.
So those are my primary focuses right now, just trying to get this off the ground and share my message with as many people as possible.
That's really cool. That's a neat thing. What was it? Was there a trigger? Was it? I think you mentioned something. What it was? I remember what it was. Was it something pretty specific or just general?
The trigger was my fiance threatening to leave me.
Was that it? Oh, okay. So there was a specific trigger. All right, fair enough.
It really came down to I was so worried about the future obligations I had, the world that was coming to fruition, the stress I was involved. She put me in my place and really showed me how to be present instead of worrying about the future.
That's awesome. Grounded you.
And that gave me, I actually felt, so, do you know the fight or flight switch?
Sure.
I actually felt my fight or flight switch for the first time in 10 years switch off entirely.
Yeah. Well, they leave that one out. Fight or fight or freeze. You froze. You stayed where you're at. You're in a good spot. Usually it's a negative connotation, but we get what you're getting at. No, that's awesome. She grounded you. That's what she's supposed to do. That's awesome. And she's supposed to let you be a man and do this silliness where you quit your job and wander off to the forest and
It's not all sunshines and rainbows. I do have to renovate the basement, do all the lawn work, and make sure our backyard's ready for parents when they come. And there's some trade-offs where I actually have to do some manly side things, but I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, no, it's your thing. No, it sounds like you go on the right track. I don't want you to get the idea that I'm trying to discourage you or that I'm trying to be down on what you're doing at all. That's not my point at all. I know that I've had many of these conversations and that I've spent a lot of years trying to decide I was an activist, a street activist, as in, down on the street, avoiding the pepper spray bullets and dodging the cops on the motorcycles that were trying to run us over in the park. That kind of street activism, and out on the street and performing theater of the bankers taking over, and just years and years of doing things like that, and ultimately finding that the only place that I ever had any real influence. That's what was great about this, is it's just a record. All this, it just goes, it's for the record. If it ever is anything, it'll be somebody for somebody, it's somewhere down, whatever. Otherwise, it's just that record of what we were doing at the time, and it's just me doing what I want to do and be happy. I like to talk with people, I like to hear about new things, and I like to hear about new ideas, and I love to hear about people who are succeeding doing their thing. And so it all fits, right? It fits right in that perfect little space.
I think a lot of people just want to do the same. And within the next 5 years, a lot of people are going to be able to do the exact same thing.
Well, a lot of them will have no choice, because AI and robotics and things will put a bunch more of them out of work. But, hey, learn how to code, and then you can program the AI.
Well, and that's what I'm teaching people too. AI is an enhancement. I don't want it to take over. It's just an enhancement for what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's a great tool. I use it regularly. I use it. Look, I'm an artist. I draw, I paint, I can sculpt, I do all these things. But they take time. They take energy. They would take me away from doing the other things so what can I do? I can do one thing. I type out 120 words per minute sentence into a machine and tell it to produce me an image that is, maybe not perfect, but it's better than I would have done in the, same amount of time if I was given the same amount of time to come up with it. And I'm not one of these people that hates on it. I don't believe there's such thing as IP. That's ridiculous. You can't, you either steal something from somebody or you don't. You can't take their idea. You can't take their thoughts. That doesn't exist. Once you put it out into the world, it's free for everybody there to do. If you want it protected, protect it. But otherwise, if somebody breaks onto your server and takes your files, that's theft. If you put your files out there into the world and somebody uses your files and their materials to create their own thing and do their own thing, they didn't wrong you. They didn't do you wrong. Maybe they should give you some credit.
We'd love to talk to this as an extensive full episode.
Yeah, we had to do it. Well, maybe have me come over there on your show, and we'll do it on your show.
Sounds good. Yeah, I would love to talk IP because, I have some pretty controversial things in terms of IP as well. But,
my libertarian anarchist friends don't like my opinion on IP because they want it to be more complicated than it is. I think theft is pretty obvious, and so that's the question of IP. The question of IP is theft. Did somebody steal something from you, and can you prove it? Did they deprive you of something?
Your own free will. I'm talking to you, J.K. Rowling. Your own free will. You have no right to tell anybody else how your story ends or how your story is.
No, it doesn't. Not once you've released it into the world. George Lucas got that, and if for Disney, for all that everybody says about those guys, God, we're all done already. For everything they say about them, you know what? They let those fans go crazy on creation, and they don't tear them down. Go type in Star Wars fan video on YouTube and see what comes up. There are hundreds and hundreds of videos. People have put in thousands and thousands of hours of digital programming, of shooting real footage, people, actors. It's amazing.
And that's our future. Our future is just reiterating ideas to make them what we want and showcasing them to the world that, hey, it's not always the same thing and we can make something different now.
make something new, something different. Well, that's the idea of all of us being able to come together by separating, going and doing our own thing. None of us really wants to be alone. None of us really wants to do this alone. So if we can work together without being forced to work together, like we kind of seem to do every single day, us normal people out here, maybe we can figure this thing out. Man, I got to let you go, Cody Johnston. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. The Weird Canadian. Take care, my friend.
You as well. Have a good day.
All right. Let's see. Get that. Stop that one there. Stop that one.